Hey there, folks. So this is my second attempt at recording what would be episode 107. I know this was due out on what would have been December 3rd, but due to, well, the original episode sucking, I needed to make some adjustments and I decided to re-record it. So with that in mind, though, we'll get things started here. So between, well, what would have been episode 106 and now, that includes some post first attempts 107, I did some further investigation into how I wanted to handle the animations for the humanoid characters. And that's, well, for the human characters specifically. And that actually is all going to boil down to, instead of using anim montages like I had originally sort of thought I was going to need to do, either a montage or blends, well, montages was where I was thinking. Actually, we're going to need to look at a state machine. Now, for anyone not familiar with what a state machine is, a state machine is basically, it checks what state a specific value is, and from that, it determines what is going to be the logic to be used. For anyone with a programming background, you're going to understand a state machine. For anyone who doesn't have programming background, it's actually a little complicated to explain. It's actually going to be easier to show. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm just trying to open up the third person character. Because, and I'll be honest, I completely forgot where we put our animation blueprint. We're using the retargeted in, just for reference, it's animation blueprint for the mega post-apocalyptic character. Now, one thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to do this off camera because it is just going to be copying things over. I'm going to be recreating this animation blueprint. So, but going back to describing a state machine, right here, this is a good example of a very basic state machine. This is the, I'm trying to think the best way to describe it. So we're not doing anything, we're not jumping. So we are in a on the ground state. Then we are transitioning to our we've jumped state, and we just happen to have these two in between nodes. And a state machine like this can actually get very complex. Let me just go through and I'm going to just add state. And that's actually it. So state 1. And this is going to be more like how we're going to do it. Pistol. One-handed. Actually, let's rename that one-handed melee. Two-handed melee. Rifle. Unarmed. And then let's go misc. Oh, nope. We want to add state misc. So this, ignoring our initial idle walk, this is sort of how a state machine would be set up to an extent. And actually, we wouldn't have unarmed as a state. That would be this one, unarmed. Sorry, it's been a little while since I've worked on state machines that are more than 2 or 3 states, at least in an anim blueprint. Coding level, I've done it quite a few times. But so ultimately, what you would have is... Oh, no, already got that connector. I need to reconnect these backwards. So what we would have here is these are all obviously going to be bidirectional. Now, the other thing you need to take in mind when you're doing a state machine, and this is where I'm a little dubious, you're going to also need to account for things like this. And it can actually get pretty messy when you start doing these. And this is why I was trying to avoid a state machine, because every node needs to be connected to every node. So I'm going to do this. And I'm just going to quickly, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video actually, because this is going to take me a little bit. This is a little tricky to do. I'll be back once I've got all of these set up, because I really want to show this before we get started. All right, so I've got this hooked up. And as you can see here, I'm actually going to, for ease, move everything over a bit, because I want to open this up more. But yeah, so with these state machines, they can get incredibly complex. And this is where a lot of people can sort of, I don't want to say struggle, but I know for myself, it is somewhat of a struggle to keep everything in order, for lack of a better term, I should say. I'm going to have to look into what some of these are. Bet. So in here though, basically what we are looking at is how we would manage animations. Now obviously I don't want to do it here because we also have in our actual anim graph, we have various different ones, and we can, I believe, yeah, we can do, instead of what I would call a very complex anim graph here, we can do this based off an enum. So I'm just going to find slot, equipment slot. So you could see here, drag this up, post link structure, no, wildcard. Let me see, can we do it off this? Oh, no. Oh, no, maybe not. I was hoping we could do a select here. So this is also... I might have to do a little more digging on this because it's not actually working the way I thought it was. I thought we could do a select based off of our state machines. But anyways, going back to the actual state machine. So this is where things get, like I said, a little complex, and you got to try and keep everything in order. And I do think this is going to be how we're going to handle things. So in here, we would have, obviously this would be expanded because you'd want to have like, you're switching from, say, a melee weapon to a pistol or a pistol to a melee weapon. You'd want an animation that is sheath the melee weapon, draw the pistol. So we would actually have what would be these ones here, if my memory is serving correctly. Go back to here. So we would have one that's up to here and then down to here. This would be our condition for change. Actually, conduit. It would be, if my memory is serving, it's actually going to go from here. Get rid of you. How do you get rid of you? Like that. So you would actually have something like this. So this condition would be in here, we are transitioning from one-handed melee to a pistol. This would be play our sheath the one-handed melee weapon animation. In here we would have a condition of has this animation finished playing or is in the last frame, like we have with this, I think it's this one here. Yeah. And then we'd have the draw animation, draw the pistol animation, that's finished playing. We're now in this anim. So ultimately though, this is going to be very complex. As you can see here, just based off of my current setup, and actually I should have another one in here, one-handed melee and shield. I should have like shield only, and this is going to be something, and again, this is why I was hoping montages would work, is going to be, I think, just go through here, shield only, let's try to think, and you're going to want to try and organize this as you see the best, because as this gets more and more complex, you see we have all of these conditions, and I don't believe it lets you add nodes. No, it would be nice if they let you have some more organization and sort of cleanup in here, but at the same time, I'm not sure it's worth it. But either way, so you can see, and then we've got 200 melee rifle, miscellaneous, unarmed. So this would be sort of, ideally these would be states. So if we go back to our anim graph, that would be like, here's our unarmed state machine, our one-handed state machine. And I actually want to look to see, that's something I'm going to do off camera, because again, I'm filling in gaps as I go here. So this is ideally, and I'm pretty sure there is a way, I'm like 99% sure there is ways that you can do that. But well, actually here, it's a learning thing. So let me just pull up this and go switch between, actually, no, sorry, UE5, switch between state machines. No, it's not state machines, anim states. So let's pull this over here. We'll take a look at this first entry. This is from Reddit's Unreal Engine thread, post, board, whatever you call it on Reddit. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, so this is the sort of thing I'm going to actually do off camera. Sorry, I just sitting there reading all of that and realized it was in silence. But ultimately, though, we do have one big thing we need to address first and foremost when it comes to this state machine, and that's going to be how we are identifying which of the states we are in. So for that, we are going to need, well, an enum. So go over to the content browser here and close out of everything. Actually, before I do that, I am sorry to be a little bouncy in this episode, but my brain was half thinking I'd already recorded this, don't need to cover it, but that was in the first attempt at episode 107. So between episodes 106 and now, I've gone through and I've pulled in a ton of animations and a few assets to use for humanoid characters. And as you can see here, I did set up some folder structure there. I've got animations, human, montage if needed. I've got a folder for AnimBPs, and then I've got anims. And right now in here, there's 205 animations that are all parented or targeted at our human skeleton that we're going to be using. I've got a dev test one in here because I was just working on that to see. And in here, I have another 190. So it's going to be, what, 400 animations all but that I need to retarget to the humanoid skeleton. Over and above that, as I mentioned, I did also pull in some mesh skeletal assets. So in here you have mesh, character. I actually need to rename this to humanoid. Actually, no, human. And this is going to take a moment because there's quite a few assets in here. But I went through and I have a particular asset creator. Just grab this and bring it over. Come on. Thank you. I'm not going to... Bugramov? Okay, I'm not going to try and pronounce that last name. But I'm actually a huge fan of his work. All of his stuff is pretty well intermixable. Like, you can pull the parts out. He's got quite an extensive collection here. Also got a Patreon where you can get access to his stuff as well. I will put a link to his fab page down in the description of this video. You can access all of his stuff from up here. So with that, though, I just want to say I've been using a lot of his assets. You can see he's got a range in there. But anyway, sorry, I keep getting sidetracked. Let's redock you. So in here, you can see I've got the folder structure I set up. I pulled over these full characters just because I wanted to do some testing with them to see how they would work. I do not intend to use these because I do not want solid part models. I want it to be mix and match because I want to be able to have the ability to walk up to a guy, and if you really want to, you can take the shirt off his back and put it on. Much like Project Zomboid, for example, you have full access to their entire inventory. But with that, so I pulled out all these parts. Now, there isn't that many in here, and I still got to go through and process some of these. But these are just the ones I currently have access to. I don't intend to add many more at this early stage because, well, honestly, I'd have to go out and buy a ton more assets. And right now, I'm not at the stage I'm wanting to dump more money into this project, like for assets specifically for this. But as you can see, I've got the post-apocalyptic character stuff. I've pulled in a bunch of other assets. Everything in here is modular. Now, there's certain assets I need to go through and remove because they're not going to work for what I want. Things like we've got partial shirts, don't need those when we've got the full shirt, which is what I want. So I do need to clear that out. I think this is going to drop down to maybe 100 assets. But within there also, I just added a physics folder to help keep things organized. But anyways, covered that, covered the animations. Is there anything else I covered last episode that... No, that was it. So, oh, actually, sorry, I did forget to mention. So in here, I do have the single humanoid mesh that I'm using. Mesh, skeleton. This is from that Mega Post-Apocalyptic character pack. I went through, I grabbed one of them, copied it over. Actually, I think I moved it over, renamed it. And this is just for the purpose of all that retargeting I'm doing. SK skeleton underscore TF human character underscore skeleton. I just changed that middle name because I think these had like SK mesh. Yeah, SK character 2. So I just changed that character to, I prefaced it with TF human character, whatever it was I did. But anyways, so now that's out of the way, going back to our anim graph. We need an enum, let's move this out of the way quick, to help us decide which of these states we're in. So we're going to go to our C++ classes, the fall, in this case my project, into the public folder. We're going to right click new C++ class. We're going to leave it as none empty. Right click our little folder here on the right because it's not going to show up as an option. We want data type. And this is going to be equip anim state. I'm going to create that class. Now I did this through, launched the editor through Visual Studio, so it's going to ask for a reload. Or maybe not. What I'm going to do here, though, is I'm going to hop back. Nope. So I'm going to pause the video just because I know we are hitting on that 20-minute mark, and I do want to cover a bit of this logic here before we get too far into things. Well, into things, but too far along. There's quite a lot I want to get covered in this episode, so I will be back once I'm done in the editor. Alright, so that finished compiling, and the editor, I just closed it down so I could keep my windows in the position I like them. But with that, so in here, we're just going to do our standard enum setup. I'm going to delete the functions in the source file. We're pretty much done with the source file. Going to clear out the header file, and just for ease, so I don't have to worry about it too much in the future, we have various different structures, but you can see we've got the way we need to set up an enum, I should say. I don't want to use the right terminology here. We obviously need to include our generated header, so it's going to be include e-equip anim state. Actually, I'm just going to e-equip. That's because I can't spell. Let's try this again. Delete u. Equip anim state dot generated dot h, and IntelliSense is being a pain right now. And then you can see we've got this one here. We don't need this script to name. I don't believe for this one, I don't believe it's going to override anything, so I'm going to remove that. And then we use normal C++, so enum class e equip anim state, and as always it's derived from uint 8, and then we just need to define our states in there. So now this is a list that as we go is probably going to get expanded as I realize there's new states that are needed. So we're going to go EAS unarmed, EAS for equip anim state, obviously, pistol, EAS rifle, EAS one hand melee, EAS one hand melee shield, EAS shield, EAS two hand melee, and then EAS MISC. So this enum is, like I said, this is what we're going to be using to control our state machine. State machines are normally controlled by a couple of different things: an enum, an integer. It can be controlled by other things, but enums and integers tend to be your common one. I do want to add user-friendly names to this, though. So that's what this is here, this umeta. Again, for anyone who's not familiar. So I'm going to copy and paste this in here. And just quickly fix these up. So unarmed, pistol only, rifle only. Nope, and there IntelliSense finally caught up. One-handed melee only. One-handed melee and shield. Actually, I'm going to put an ampersand for that. Shield only. Two-handed melee. And this is where, so say for example, you've got, I'm trying to think of a good example, Skyrim. You had 3 different types of two-handed weapons. You had the two-handed mace, the two-handed axe, and the two-handed sword. Each one of those would have a different animation set. If you're doing something like that, you would do that here. So you'd have two-handed melee mace, two-handed melee axe, two-handed melee sword. So you could move into your different anim states. And then this is going to be MISC. And in here, misc specifically is sort of a catch-all that we would need to deal with further down the line. So now we've got that, we need a way to store that. So we are actually going to want to do that on our character base class, because this is going to be exposed to the player character and the NPC, or any NPC humans. So we're going to want to add that in here. I'm going to include data type equip anim state. Sorry, I was sitting there looking for the actual name in the left of the list there. Now on top of that, actually, why did I close that? There's one thing we need to consider, that we need to think, okay, we need to store the state we were in and the state we were going to. And that's for the purposes, as I was mentioning, transitioning from one to another. You're going to have conditions there that it's going to be like, if previous state equals two-handed melee and new state equals one hand or pistol, then that you can use that combination boolean to determine, okay, we need to go down this route to the the next anim state, sort of thing. So what I'm going to do for that, we have been using regions for some cleanup. So what I'm going to be doing is, obviously based on me mentioning that, pragma region anim state, pragma end region, because I can't spell equip. There we go. Previous state, new state. Now, doing this made me realize we actually need to add another state. EAS default. I'm going to go umeta display name. Actually, no, we want the default state to be unarmed. So I was just thinking, because no, unarmed is going to be our base state for everything. So add that in. And this is just giving it its default initializer. Now, obviously, this is some private information. It's in our private section. We're going to need functions to grab this information. So down here in our public section, and these are going to be blueprint pure, because obviously we don't want this information to be changed. So equipment, equip anim state, get previous state const, and you can probably guess, get new previous equip. I want to make sure this is get new equip state const. Now, actually, equip anim state. I'm going to make sure these are correctly named. We're going to define these. And typical Visual Studio is going to take forever to do this. So anyways, I'll talk while it's doing this, because we are hitting that 30-minute mark, and we're going to end the episode shortly here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be setting up these getters to pull that information, but we're also going to need to add some additional functionality to set these values respectively based on, I'm trying to think of the terminology here. The states as they change. Sorry, my brain just did not want to work. So anyways, in this case, previous state. Actually, I want to fix these names because I don't like those. Okay, so let's try this again. Return previous anim state. Return new anim state. Now, as mentioned, we want a functionality, a function that we can call to say, okay, our animations are finished. So I'm going to grab this. It won't be a pure because this is going to be a void. Void complete anim state change. And this one's going to be pretty simple. Previous anim state equals new anim state. And all we're doing here, and the purpose of this one is, so just to explain, because this is actually where I'm going to end the episode, is after this part here. So when we're doing that transition from, say, a pistol to a sword, we want to say, okay, we're currently pistol, we're going to sword. So that would be, previous anim state would be pistol, new anim state at the time would be sword. Once we've holstered the pistol, drawn the sword, what we would then do is at the end of that draw sword animation, we would have an event trigger to say, call this complete anim state function so that the previous anim state would get updated to what we changed to. And then as part of here, we're going to be setting some additional information to, what's the word here? Set what the new state is going to be. Sorry, my brain is all over the place today. So, but yeah, so example in here, if we are setting this, we would go new anim state equals equip anim state unarmed, because what we're doing here, obviously this doesn't work for the entirety, because if we have a one-handed weapon and a shield and we're removing the shield but we're keeping the one-handed weapon, we need to transition one way. But this is just an example here. We would say new anim state equals, we'd have to do some logic checking there. Otherwise, here we would want to do, here in logic to determine new anim state. I'm actually going to put a to do there. So it right there, we would add in that and go, okay, so it's, we need to set our anim state, and then within the anim graph itself, we would have like this little functionality check that goes, okay, is the anim graph's new state different from the character's new state? If so, trigger an animation change. So, but anyways, with that, folks, there is still a little more planning I need to do. I wanted to basically address the, well, not address, but I needed to redo episode 107 from my first attempt because A, it was really short. It didn't really cover anything. I wasn't happy with it. So next episode is going to be obviously continuation of this here. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to cover in it. I need to do some planning and everything. So hopefully everything goes good. And next episode is actually just getting another big chunk of this animation stuff done. So, as always though, folks, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Or you can hop over onto the Discord. It's linked in the channel information. But as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.